In this video, we'll be focusing on pronouns. We'll take a look at what they are, why we use them, and we'll go through some of the main types you're likely to come across on grammar exams. Specifically, we'll cover personal pronouns, reflexive pronouns, demonstrative pronouns, and relative pronouns. Let's get right into it. A pronoun is a word used in place of a noun. We usually use pronouns to avoid repetition. For example, instead of saying, John saw the cat, John fed the cat tuna, John and the cat were happy, we could simply say, John saw the cat, he fed it tuna, and they were happy. Instead of repeating John and the cat over and over, we can simplify the sentence by replacing them with their appropriate pronouns. When they're the subjects of the sentence, pronouns include I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. When they're the object of the sentence, pronouns include me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. For example, if someone mentions your friend Anne, you might say, I saw her at the store, without having to say, I saw Anne at the store. You've already mentioned Anne in your conversation, so now you can just replace Anne with the personal pronoun her, as Anne is the object of the sentence. Similarly, you could say, I've heard of it, if someone asks you if you know a certain book, or we know them when discussing a group whose names have already been brought up. Moving on, we have reflexive pronouns. We use reflexive pronouns when the subject and object of the sentence are the same. In other words, when we do something to ourselves or when someone does something to themselves. Reflexive pronouns always end in self or selves. They include myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, yourselves, and themselves. When using the reflexive tense, I always pairs with myself, he pairs with himself, etc. So you might say, I taught myself to play piano. In this sentence, you're both the subject and object of the sentence, as you're the one teaching and the one being taught. Other examples include, she got herself dressed, it put itself to sleep, or they made themselves cookies. Moving on, we have the 4 demonstrative pronouns. These pronouns are used to discuss specific things that are near or far from you, when the subject is already clear or has been mentioned. The good news is that there are only 4. This, that, these, and those. This and these refer to things that are close to us, while that and those are used for things far from us. This and that are singular, while these and those are plural. For example, instead of saying, the song that's currently playing is my favorite song, we could simply say, this is my favorite song, as everyone can hear the song currently playing and the subject is obvious. Instead of saying, the shoes Julie was wearing were cute, we could say, those were cute. Again, these are used when the subject of the sentence has already been established in the conversation. And lastly, we have relative pronouns. These pronouns work a little differently. Instead of using them to replace a noun, we use these to connect a clause to a noun. For example, she's the teacher who helped me pass the exam. The who in this sentence refers back to the noun teacher. The most common relative pronouns are who, whom, whose, which, and that. Who is used when it's the subject of the sentence, and whom is used when it's the object. Which and that are used for animals and inanimate objects, as opposed to who and whom, which are used exclusively for humans. Whose is used for everything. Let's first take a look at who, whom, and whose. The students who studied hardest passed the exam. We use who here as the students are the subject of the sentence. She's the woman with whom I've been working. We use whom here as the woman is the object of the sentence. This is the book whose cover I tore. Whose here indicates possession. In this sentence, the cover belongs to the book. Again, whose is used for both animals, inanimate objects, and people. Let's now take a closer look at that and which. That and which are both used for animals or inanimate objects, but they have different functions. That is used when adding essential information needed to fully understand the sentence, while which is used when adding optional information that doesn't change the main idea of the sentence. Let's take a look at an example. Let's say we're discussing a 150-year-old house that's for sale. If the owner is selling multiple houses and wants to make sure that he knows we're talking about this house, he would say, "The house that is 150 years old is for sale." He uses that to show that this clause is essential. Without it, we may misunderstand which house he's talking about. However, if this is the only house this man is selling, he would say, "The house, which is 150 years old, is for sale." This phrase now gives us more information about the house, but without it, the sentence is still perfectly understandable. The house is for sale. Therefore, in this context, we'd use which, as it introduces a phrase that's not essential. You may notice that when using the relative pronoun that, no commas are added. When using which, we put commas before and after the phrase. This is because English grammar rules dictate that non-essential information be set apart from the rest of the sentence by commas. Because which clauses are non-essential by definition, they need to be set off on both sides by commas. That wraps up our look at pronouns. We've covered the main types: personal, reflexive, demonstrative, and relative. Be sure to review these concepts as you keep practicing.